I finished recapping the high voltage doubler and put some new 1x2B tubes down in there. Also tested all the tubes and only two were a little weak. So I replaced those, the rest were just fine. Dug up a yoke from an Admiral TV that used the same type picture tube. So now it's got the right deflection angle and a cross-reference to a Thor Arson Y6, which was what this set also cross-referenced to, so I think that'll be compatible. Temporarily rigged up a connector by salvaging the base of an old octal tube, breaking some pins off, threading the wires into the pins, and then plugging it in. And still got my replacement focus coil in place because this test CRT doesn't need one, and I got a new high voltage lead going. So let's give this a try. Disconnected the speaker so we're not going to hear any sound, but hopefully we can get a raster going. Again, my voltmeters on the 200 volt bus. So now that we've got the output tubes in there, well, certainly hear some high voltage or horizontal oscillator action running. It's still higher than I would expect though. Horizontal output tube is not red plating, I don't think. So CRT is glowing, but I don't see any raster. Let's see. Outer is brightness, so what's up all the way? Oh no, I might have the mode still in FM radio mode. Alright, so I don't think this is accurate, because this is FM, TV, phono, so I'm all the way at the left now. TV, or maybe it is. Okay, so TV's in the middle. Alright, anyways, we've got a raster. Crooked because my yoke is at a bit of an angle. Don't want to get shocked here, but I'll try to carefully rotate it. There we go. Now I don't have any signal source hooked up, so I'm just picking up who knows what. See if I can get over to the channel 6 area on the dial. That would actually be the other way. The FM band is wedged in between channels 6 and 7 on the dial. So, falls well somewhere around 6. Maybe you can pick up something. Yeah, looks like there might be a signal coming through here, so let's see. Outer here is horizontal hold. Yeah, it's trying to lock on to something. There is a frequency adjust on the back here. Oh, so close to locking in. I've got it cranked down as tight as it'll go. I'm adjusting the drive control now, which I wouldn't expect would have too really much effect on free running frequency. Let's see if the hold has enough range now to lock in. No, boy, that's really close. Adjusting the contrast now, brightness. Try tuning it a little better. Maybe if I get a stronger signal coming in, it can lock. No. Oh, let's see, where's vertical? Actually, I don't think there is a vertical hold. That's weird. Focus, horizontal hold, mode, contrast, brightness, tuning. It's on the back of the set somewhere. Well, I'm going to keep fiddling with this and see if I can get it to lock. There's also a coil underneath this set that sets free running frequency and an adjustment for the locking range too. Well, unfortunately, no amount of control tweaking could get the horizontal to lock, so I'm going to be digging back underneath the chassis. So I also want to figure out why is this 200 volt bus point here 100 volts too high. That makes me think that there may very well be something wrong with this bleeder resistor network, or some part of the circuitry. Because if there isn't enough current being drawn here, that would make that voltage too high, and that's pretty significant. That's 50% too high. So I think before I go troubleshooting circuits, I should get the power supply straightened out. I also notice that there is a label up here. It says horizontal hold on sets with red clip only. Now I don't know what the red clip is, but the other side of that is this guy, which is the horizontal oscillator coil. Two slugs typically. One will be for the horizontal free running frequency, and the other is for kind of a wave shape control. Well, I tried adjusting that. It did have some effect, but still couldn't lock. The vertical controls are indeed on the back. The usual hold, height, and linearity. I printed out the voltage and resistance measurement chart and was about to check the sync circuitry when I realized that it's underneath a shield, and once you're underneath the shield you find out there are some caps underneath there that need to be replaced. So I've got my fingers crossed that I found the problems. These caps look pretty miserable. Clipped one lead of this already to get out of the way, and that one's oozing out of the bottom. I think I may have made the same mistake when I worked on the other chassis. I do remember as I was taking this one out that there's quite a few screws, and it's a little awkward to get out, and also awkward to work in these tight quarters. But I'll definitely replace those caps and check the resistors while I'm down there. And since that is the sync circuit and I have sync trouble, it seems to me that is a very, very likely source of the problem. Ah, that's better. Here's one of the old caps I took out. Definitely not in the best condition. I think I'll try powering this up without the shield in place, see how things go, and then pop it back on if all is well. Not so fast. I discovered there was another cap I had missed lurking way down in there. I just pulled out. That is a 0.1 microfarad coupling cap between that first sync clipper and second sync clipper. The stuff inside that dashed line is what was underneath that shield. So narrowband sync amplifier, sync and AJC detector, first sync clipper, second sync clipper. So basically I neglected to replace all of the paper caps in the sync circuitry, so not surprising I've got troubles. Now replacing it's going to be a little tricky. I need to get up, pin one of that tube there, and then tie point down in there. Of course, when they built this, they would have installed the deepest parts first and then built their way up, so sometimes getting back down to those deeply seated components can be a bit of a challenge. And it's exacerbated by this rectifier tube socket that is lower than the rest of the chassis, so it really sticks down in there and gets in the way. Alright, time for another power test. Well, definitely the sync is better. Adjusting the vertical controls right now. That's vertical hold. And the horizontal sync is there, but we've got some serious waving and also some really dark bars in the brightness that are multiple of, they're in sync with the vertical. So what this means is we've got some serious 60 hertz hum going through the B+ power supply somehow. Oh, notice the video's backwards. It's because I have the horizontal yoke pins backwards. So yeah, we got some serious twerking. We've got some serious brightness bars. So It seems like some serious lack of filtering, which is a little surprising given that this has 2 filter chokes. And a whole bunch of electrolytics. Well, should be easy enough to get a scope in there. One possibility too is that one of these tubes has a short. The power supply is fine, and there's like a heater to cathode short that's feeding some of the filament 60 hertz into the power supply. Well, I checked the tubes, and this seems like it's pretty strong and pretty prevalent. And if there was some short in the tube, I would think that these filter caps would do a halfway decent job of getting it out. So I think there's something wrong with the power supply. So I'm going to double check all my connections there. Here's the 2 main filter caps. So let's see what's going on there. I wonder if this fuse blew. I should effectively take this cap out, but it also, well, that is power to the flyback, so I guess that's not really a possibility. But I mean, even if either one of these was in place, plus all these, it just seems like that's a lot of hum to be coming from just a minor wiring mistake in the power supply, but we shall see. I think I may have found the problem, or at least a problem. Little terminal strip I had to install. This is a filter cap that goes in between these 2 chokes. I have the negative lead going to the chassis. Rookie mistake. Negative lead should actually go to the negative rail of the power supply, so I need to move that lug over here and run a wire from here over to here. Even so, though, I wouldn't have thought it'd make that much of a difference. That's this cap right here. So negative lead doesn't go to ground, it goes to this negative 50 volt bus. Oh, something else I should mention. I've been measuring the B plus on this resistor point here, or I should say the 200 volt bus, and it was measuring much too high. Well, that's because I had that connected to the wrong side. That's this resistor right here. I thought I was measuring this 200 volts, I was actually measuring the other side. And now that I've got things hooked up right, I am getting close to 200 volts. Okay, I switched that cap lead around. Let's try another power up. Aha, much better looking. I wouldn't have thought it'd make that much of a difference, but clearly I was wrong. It's a really nice picture too. Just in tuning a little bit. Excellent. I'm going to leave this run for a while. Let's see if it stays stable. And there's a matter of dealing with those power resistors underneath. Recall one section was bad on the other chassis and there was one temporarily tacked in. Well, I think I've got a solution for that. That solution is these guys. Chassis mount power resistors rated for 25 watts. These originals are only rated about 10 watts according to the SAM, so definitely exceeded in wattage. And the reason I want these is you can mount them down to the chassis. I'll remove these. I guess I'll have to drill out the rivets and then drill some new holes if need be and get these mounted down there. Definitely run cool. Heat will get dissipated to the chassis, and they have nice solid lug points to connect components to. These canned dome resistors have a really high failure rate. You can see one section of this on this chassis has already failed, and I won't be surprised if another section fails soon after. And it's definitely not a good idea to connect replacements to these tie points, because you've got wire wound around an element inside here, and it is possible for that to get jostled or something and for it to reconnect. Definitely don't want that. So why would having that capacitor going to ground not work really at all, but going to the negative bus made a big difference? Well, what's between the negative bus and the ground? 427 ohm resistor. So in effect it was acting like a capacitor with a really high ESR, which was rendering it really ineffective. So now things are working quite nicely, except it's kind of noisy. Partly it's this connector, and these an RCA jack on the back. It's actually a 72 ohm input impedance because of the Mallory duct tuner down here. There's continuously variable tuner, but I also think the tuner is a little bit dirty. So what I'd like to do is get in there and clean it. Which is not so easy to do. I'm continuously turning the knob, that's why the picture's going in and out. I was looking at the service info and they mentioned that there's 4 things you can turn on top, which I think are these guys, but unfortunately there's this metal plate here, it's kind of in the way. I'm not sure how I'm going to get at it. I also got to weigh, is it really worth doing? It's not that noticeable. It seems like the more I use the tuner, the less of an issue it is. And keep in mind, this tuner hasn't been operated probably decades, so it's going to be a little crusty at first. Otherwise, the set's been working really well, no problems. Here's the last of the new power resistors. The others are installed all below and wired in. I used some silicone heatsink compound and some nice cap head screws on it. So what's left is to just disconnect this guy and wire this one in. Well, I asked for opinions on video camera about this tuner, and I got a reply from Phil Nelson, who has worked on several of these Dumont induct tuner based sets, and he said that you should really get in there and clean it out and put in some new grease and clean up the contacts. So that's what I'd like to do, but he also informed me that there's really no way to get this cover off while it's installed, so I will need to unmount it. So you can get to these easily enough. There's 4 of them. You turn these and the cover gets loosened, but you can't get it out. You can take these 3 tubes and the shield's up, but then you got this can in the way, and even if all that was out of the way, I'm still not sure you can really get it out. But on the positive side, there's not that many connections to this. I-tube unplugs, and then typically in a tuner you've got B+, maybe AGC voltage, tube filament, signal in and out, and ground is usually just going through the metal. I got a copper clip here to make good ground contact with the shield. And another thing in my favor is that this dial mechanism with its complicated gears and dial stringing is attached to the tuner, and I believe this all comes out as one unit. So disconnect a few wires, take out a few screws, and should be able to get the whole thing out. Get this cover off, clean out the old dried up grease, put some new grease on there, and get some contact cleaner on the 4 points. Plus, I think you'll find what's inside are rather interesting if you've never seen one before. Well, that wasn't too bad to get out. Just had to undo coax, go into the antenna input, and 1, 2, 3, 4 wires. Take 3 screws out, and the whole thing came right out. So now, finally see what's under here, but these are a little too tight to do by hand. Alright, we'll get help from some pliers, and here we go. So what we've got here are 4 spiral inductors that rotate around, and that's how it tunes in the stations. There's lots of dried crud on there, so I want to clean off. Some new grease on there and clean up the contacts. I've pretty well got the tuner cleaned out. I used a bunch of parts degreaser and deoxit. While doing so, though, I noticed something. I think there's a pulley missing here. Dial string kinda rubs on this part right here. And when I compare it to the other one, see, it has a pulley there, and this one doesn't. So I wonder if it wore off, broke off. I'll have to ask around online and see what other people have to say. This is, I believe, a little bit newer chassis than this one, and possibly that something changed, because I'm not really sure how a pulley could just disappear. It would be right in here. Also not sure how I would replace it, because this is, well, it's pushed on and this other backside is mushroomed out. It doesn't unscrew or anything like that. You kind of have to drill it out or break it off. But perhaps there's some type of pulley I could maybe push over this or figure something out. I don't think it's good to have this rubbing like that. Eventually I think it's going to cause problems on that dial string and start wearing it out. Alright, that aside, the service info recommends using Lubriplate 105, and they show key lubrication points in here. Well, the stuff is still made, so I ordered up a tube of that, and while I'm waiting for it to arrive, I'm going to start working on this chassis.